All right, everybody. So welcome. This is Pete Hanson, Pete Hanson Football, and I am in Pennacook, New Hampshire here with retired coach Joe Raycraft. And we're going to talk a little football today like we do always on my channel. And we're going to learn a lot more about Joe today and start with the basics. You know, we always like to go back to, you know, where did you grow up? How did you get into football, coach? And, you know, who are some of the people that maybe helped you along the way, mentored you? And then, you know, how did you, develop your own style and culture in football and coaching? And we'll just have a little conversation today. Sound good?
That sounds great, Pete. Yep.
Yeah. So why don't we start with, where did you grow up? Did you grow up right here in Pennacook or Merrimack? Or
Seacoast.
Seacoast, okay.
I was in Dover, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And at that time, St. Thomas was not in existence.
Okay.
I went to a Catholic middle school.
Okay.
And my parents said, well, you're going down to St. Thomas.
St. Thomas Aquinas High School.
Right, on the point down there. And so I went down there, and they didn't have football at the time.
Okay.
They only had,
And not to date you here, but what years are we talking?
Okay. We're talking about 60, 62.
Okay.
Around that era. And then they brought in football. And so I thought at that time it was a little bit easier to play football than to run cross country.
Okay.
Cross country, you're by yourself.
So those were the two choices in the fall, right?
Those were the real two choices you had. And then after the fall season, I went into basketball, and then I went into the spring sports of baseball. But we started off down there, and it was a great experience for me. They had youth programs, but they were very limited. And if you're familiar with Dover at all, Woodman Park School is in Dover, and it's an elementary school, and you started there, and that's where you used to play your games. Yeah. And so I went there, and I had two great coaches there. I had Coach George Heeman, who came from Canada at the time. He was from originally in New Hampshire, and Coach Bob Weeks, who had just graduated from UNH, and he was all conference. Yeah. So he came. And
so he knew his stuff.
He knew his stuff, and there was only two of them. So, I mean, that were actually paid assistants. We had a couple of volunteer coaches. And then from there, I left there and decided that where am I going to go to school after high school? That reality started to set in. You got to do something if you're going to survive.
Right.
And so I decided that I would go to, at the time, it was New Hampshire, Southern New Hampshire now, but it wasn't It wasn't Southern New Hampshire at the time. Okay. And so I went there. Yeah. And at that time, I met Coach Lou D'Alessandro, who coached at Trinity, or Bradley at the time.
Bishop Bradley, right.
And then he went. He said, "Listen, I'm looking for somebody to come up to Trinity and work with the kids as a quarterback, because I was a quarterback at the time." Okay. So I said, "All right, you and me." Yeah. So I said, "I'd be more than happy to." So I did that, and I made a pretty good connection. Yeah. And so then I went to.
So you were going to school right in Manchester area, what is now SNHU campus, that area. Yeah. And then so going right over to Trinity after school.
Yeah, it was relatively easy.
Yeah.
And so I went over there, and he was a great influence on me on what should be done, and some of the things that he was instituting at the time would not be able to be instituted now.
Okay.
But that's the times.
Out of curiosity, in the '60s, and this is late '60s, I assume. Then, so what were the type of offenses that they were running? Was it really power eye, real run heavy?
It was mostly run heavy, but it was also wing T. That I got from St. Thomas.
Okay. When you played at St. Thomas.
When I played at St. Thomas, and I associated this with playing basketball. But my handling of the ball was considered pretty good. Yeah. And so that kind of fit into what we were doing. Yep. And so we went to Trinity on off days off days being that we didn't have basketball practice at the time because he was the coach down there. And we went down and had very success down there. And then I decided, well, okay, now those years are going by. So again, you got to make another tough decision. What are you going to do now? Because you got to have a living.
Yeah.
At that time, I had met my wife, Donna. We've been married for 58 years. So
58. Wow. Congratulations,
thank
Coach.
You. So we had some.
So what I found from talking to a lot of you retired coaches, there's always a great wife behind them supporting, because it's such a sacrifice.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a sacrifice for them too, in terms of seeing you as much during the season and the commitment that's involved there and everything else.
Yeah,
so,
and she was very good and very helpful. She also went to Southern New Hampshire University.
Okay.
And so that's where I really met her, because she's from Maine originally.
Oh, okay.
So it was a good connection for us.
Nice.
And then once we got into that, I decided that...
what did you get your degree in?
I got business management.
Business management?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I figured I could kind of use that someplace along the way, whether it was
very
in
good
athletics
general
or
degree to get, right?
Yeah. And so I went to Southern New Hampshire, and then I went down to, after that, I went down to do some, I still continue to coach with Coach D'Alessandro at Trinity or Bradley. And when I graduated, he said, "Are you interested in teaching?" And I said, "Well, I never really have thought about it, but sure." And so he knew, of course, I don't think there's anybody in the state he doesn't know.
Yeah,
so that's a great help for me.
This is Lou D'Alessandro, the politician now, right?
Yeah,
long time.
Yeah.
So huge network.
And he and his brothers all played at UNH football.
Yep.
So that
great
was
football
a good
player in his own right.
Right. And so I went down to Southern New Hampshire, and so he said to me, he says, "How about teaching some business courses?"
Oh, yeah.
I says, "Yeah." I says,
why not?
But again, not having taught before, you'd have to get some certifications.
Yeah, sure.
And so he got me an interview up here, Brady High School.
Bishop Brady.
Bishop Brady.
In Concord.
Yeah. And so I went up there and I got interviewed. And at that time, the looking at was basketball. They were looking for an assistant basketball coach and an assistant football coach. Nice. And at those times, when you got hired, you did more than one thing.
Yeah.
You just weren't specializing.
All the teachers were doing something else.
Correct. And most of them were from the school.
Yeah.
So that was another good internet that we had there, talking to those guys. And so I got on to in basketball, and at that time he said, "How about coaching football?" And I says, "Yeah, I'll do that, because I've coached before, and I've done some before." Yeah. And he says, "How about baseball? You played baseball in college?" I says, "Yeah, I did." How about this? I said, "That's fine." And at that time, the salary was, I think, roughly $6,800.
Yeah, right. The private Catholic schools, great schools, but the pay wasn't great, right?
The pay
they didn't have
was
a ton of money.
Pay was not great, and again, you had to just, I'm hoping that if I could bring home over $100 a week, I'd be golden. I wouldn't have to work anymore.
Living the dream, right?
But that didn't happen.
Building a life, right.
So anyways, to make a long story short, I got that position, and your contract stated that, you would coach these 3 sports, and this is the amount of money you would get. Yeah. So I said, "Yep, I'll do it." So that's how I started. And at that time, we were in Manchester living.
Okay, right. So daily commute in the Concord.
Right. So now I had to find a place relatively close to here. Yeah. And I found one in Boscawen, which is right down the road. And so then I said to Donna, I says, "Well, what do you think?" She says, "Yeah, go for it." And so I says, "Okay." So I went down, and we would go out when she was working in Manchester. I was working up here. We'd go around when we had time off to look for places where we could live that might be a little bit closer. And we'd come home and we discussed that. And, you know, her famous comment was, I was afraid to walk onto the porch. And I said, oh, God. I said, I don't think I want to do that. I said, that's too much. So anyways, we came home one day and said, hey, I found this place. She says, I found a place too. I said, really? She says, yeah. I says, okay. I says, you show me and I'll show you. Lo and behold, it was this place here.
This house right here.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's definitely
so this is
different.
Early 70s?
Yeah, we've been here for 58 years.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And it was a nice
So you both found
neighborhood.
the same house, and this is back when you're not surfing the internet looking for houses.
No, hell,
you have to like see it in a
newspaper. I had a hard time getting on the internet.
Yeah,
you know, really.
Yeah.
And so I got there, and so we said, okay, we could do this. And since that time, we definitely made modifications because we had kids. So we got down there, and we moved in, and we talked about, you know, what was going to happen, the coaching part of it, the monetary aspect of it, and that we were going to have to make things, you know, make
things work.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we did, and they worked so well.
So you were at Bishop Brady for how many years then?
We were there. I was there for 7 years.
7 years?
Yep.
And you were an assistant coach the whole time, or did you become?
No, I was an assistant coach in basketball and baseball and football for 2 years, and then the football coach left, and so I applied for that job and I got that job. Okay. And so then after being there for that period of time, position opened in Merrimack, in New Hampshire, and so
the big move.
The big move was coming, and I says, well, if I'm going to stay in this profession and earn some money doing this, I need to know if I'm good enough to stay there. I don't want to go for a year and then say, I don't want this.
Disruption to the family, everything,
And so I says, let's go for it. And so I got in, and I got an interview in Merrimack, and that was only to start a football program.
Yeah, so brand new program.
Brand new program, just like was when I was at St. Thomas Aquinas. It was a brand new program.
Right.
And so I said, I've got some experience in that field. So we went there. And now, again, the next question is, how are we going to get back and forth?
To commute.
Yeah.
So now you're living in here.
I'm living here.
Merrimack is a pretty good haul.
45 minutes.
Yeah, 45 minutes.
And so I said, well, she says, well, you want to move? And because we had lived in parts of Manchester when we were going to school.
Right. Yeah.
And so we said, I said, let's wait a year or two and see how it works out. If it works out good, because we loved the neighborhood. Yeah. We loved the school systems. Yeah. And so after a couple of years, we decided that, I said, I can do it. Yeah. You know, but it's going to be some longer hours.
Yeah.
And so after the first year down there, the athletic director at that time was Larry Cross. Mm-hmm. He was the baseball coach down in Merrimack. Okay. And he resigned from that position.
Oh, okay.
And so they asked me if I would be interested in doing that. Yeah. And I says, yeah. You know, again, why not? Being as naive as I was, not knowing.
That really rises when you're committing to.
Right. And so I says, okay. And so I went and I did that. And once I had the job, I would coach football. Yeah. And again, if they were looking for another coach, then that kind of, you felt obligated because they gave you a break and you're going to give them.
Like, I'll coach that team too.
Yeah.
And
so I did that, and I did that.
You coached like girls softball and basketball too, right?
Yeah.
So you were there year round almost.
I was there
after
year
school till 6, 7 o'clock at night.
And at that time, Speed, as you probably know, games for basketball didn't start until 7:30, 8 o'clock. You know,
right.
Which is
and there's away games and you're playing
so,
all over the place.
And at that time, while while Donna and I were in school, we had our first child. And so we had my senior year at New Hampshire College. And we had a child that we had to, again, make plans for and work around. And so we did that. And we fought through that, but it was a difficult decision to make.
Yeah.
And then after we got into coaching those sports, we decided that maybe it's time to make another change.
Okay.
And so that's when the athletic directorship in Manchester for the city of Manchester opened up.
For the city of Manchester.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that included, again, being as naive as I still am, that included
all over the place.
All 3 high schools.
Yep. So Central, West, Memorial.
Memorial.
Yep.
And not Trinity, because that was private.
Yep.
But it also included, you had to make sure that the programs were running.
Yeah.
And you really had no home base to go to.
Right.
So I was
driving all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, so they said to me that, well, you have a car. And I says, okay.
So a company car,
well,
quote unquote.
Company car, which was an old state police Crown Victoria, that they picked up.
Right.
And,
well, but before we go into the athletic director piece, let's go back to when you started the program at Merrimack, because I'm always fascinated about how new coaches start and how do they get their assistant coaches, because you need a staff, right, to coach football.
Right.
Like, were you at that point? You had been coaching at Bishop Brady, so you were probably starting to know some of the other coaches in the area. But how did you go about defining your staff and asking guys?
I knew a lot of the people down there, two other sports, and so I would ask, is there anybody who's interested? Yep. And there was maybe 1 or 2 that we had in school, teachers, that would decide they would help out and work with me. There was also people in the Pop Warner program who was, but again, you need to be careful on bringing in people if you don't know them.
Yeah.
And so one of my biggest thing was, I need to talk to these people to see if their ideas and my ideas are somewhat similar.
Yeah.
So we aren't butting heads every time we go out there.
Yeah.
I was a very structured individual. In other words, when we went out for practice, everybody knew what they were doing.
What was going to
and the kids knew what they were doing. I would post a schedule every morning when I got there.
Mapped out.
I would leave my house here at 3:45 a.m. to get down there. Now, the people said, well, why are you going down there so early? I said, well, I've got other sports I got to contend with other than football. So I got to make sure that everybody else is on.
And if it's a rainy day, you got to be thinking about, am I going to call games? Who do I have to call? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was.
So you're up early, and you're driving 45 minutes,
45
roughly,
minutes down
each way. Yeah.
And the interesting thing, though, Peter, was like in the wintertime, I would leave at 3:45.
Yeah.
And not knowing what the weather was like down the south. I'd get down
beyond the tolls.
I get down to the tolls, and I would hear on the radio that Merrimack High School is closed for the day. So I said, well, what am I going to do? And so I said, well, I'm over halfway. So I just went, and I said, by the time I leave, things should be cleared up. So that's how I solved that problem.
How was Merrimack started off? Were they Division II at that point? Or
they were in Division IV at that time.
Okay.
And we would play 2 years of JV programs.
Yep.
And at that JV program, our first year we didn't win a game.
Okay.
Our second year we didn't lose a game.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it wasn't because of me. It was just because people got a little bit more organized.
Yeah. So what was your basic philosophy getting into that? I'm assuming you had some thoughts about, sure, the offense you wanted to run, the defense, but what about culture and stuff? How did you develop that?
That took a little bit of time to do.
Yeah.
Because some of the culture down there was not something that I would have adhered to in my time if I had gone down by myself. So I says, okay, I've got to get this. Then the other important thing, as you pointed out, was you got to find coaches. And you got to make sure they're on the same wavelength as you are. Yeah. And so once we got that down, we would sit down and we would talk about, what do we want to run? Now, since I had the opportunity to be at Bishop Brady High School for 5 years, really, 2 as an assistant and 3 as a head coach, I had an idea what I wanted to do. And I moved from the wing T to an I. And I went to a 5 defense instead of a 4 defense.
Okay,
so
a 50, yep.
Yeah, so I stayed basic with that.
Yeah, because that was around that time frame when the I, the power I,
oh yeah,
the trap, the bucks, off sweep, all that stuff was starting to be big.
Right.
Kind of moved away from the wing, the single wing.
Yeah.
Teams are trying to get more power, Earl Campbell running up the middle of football, right? And you had to go to a 5 on defense because you needed 5 guys down low because it was usually like double tight end.
Yeah, I mean, so you had to make some adjustments. And like I said, because of Brady, I had that opportunity to go through that stuff. Yeah. So I had an idea what I wanted to do. And again, now my next thing was, well, how am I going to relay this to the players? Yeah. I can talk about it, but some of them have never played before. Right. And they have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. So I had to have a playbook. So, and I made up a playbook. That's another reason I got to school early, so I could get to the repo machine. Right.
I was just going to say, because we didn't have copiers then. No. You're like doing the whole with ink, right? Yeah. And it's getting everywhere and smudging. And oh my God.
And then the players would come back and say, I can't read that.
I can't read it. It's all blurs.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah. So you don't remember the other days when you had to go down we had to go to the police station to get our films.
Yeah, 16 millimeter or whatever, like
we had 8 millimeters up here.
8 millimeter.
Okay. So we would get the film, and then everybody would come to the house. Yep. It's not like
set up the projector.
Yeah, and we'd go downstairs, and my wife would make cookies. And now I still have former players that say, hey, does your wife still make the cookies?
Make the cookies.
Yeah, they don't care about the film. We're going to have cookies
the cookies right here, guys. So fascinating, right? So you were at Merrimack, and you created a playbook because you realized like guys need to start with the basics, the foundation, and you're there making them yourself. And
running them off.
And that seemed to help you get that off the ground.
That helped me get that off the ground because now I was sure that everybody had a copy. The biggest thing was we still had a lot of kids, even though we had a Pop Warner program, a lot of kids didn't play Pop Warner. Right. And they couldn't grasp what was going on when you were talking about that. And at that time,
they needed that visual.
I need the visual setting. And at that time, I had a couple of coaches that were from the school who came on board and wanted to work with us. We had also some of the Pop Warner coaches that were there. Some of them I felt good with. Others I didn't feel completely satisfied with. And so they would come out and we worked, and they stayed with me for about 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, so you started at Merrimack when? Was it 70-something?
72.
And we're there till 2000?
Yep.
So a lot of change in those years, right? Technology, but also the players, the offenses, and everything else. So talk a little bit about that. Like did you see any big significant changes, or was it sort of gradual over time? Because you built a program that started in Division IV for 2 years and then moved up, right? And then became sort of, okay, now we're a real established Division II team, right? Because back then it was Merrimack, Londonderry, right? Those were the big teams in Division II.
Correct.
And Division, maybe it switched to like Class L, Class M, Class S for a few years.
Yeah, but not that long. It was mostly, and what happened was that after we had played in Division IV, again, everything was run by the NHIAA. And so we get this, and I happened to be on the football committee at the time, and we got a notice saying, you will be playing in Division II next year. And I said, well, how can we play in Division II?
Skip 3, just go right to 2. Yeah. You went undefeated your second year, right?
And they said, well, you're so successful. I said, yeah, but that doesn't mean a lot,
Right.
And so they moved us up, and and the kids accepted the challenge. That was the thing that was really helpful. The coaches were all well behind it. And so we went there, and we stayed in Division II, and we're, again, with the coaches that I had and brought on, and the players, we instituted a lifting program to get them.
That seems to be core to all the coaches I talked to.
To get going. the off-season programs and things like this.
Yeah.
And so we went from that point on. We were successful in that I think it was 10 years in a row we made the playoffs.
Yep.
And so we're extremely satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And so, the kids worked hard and continued to work hard. And then as the program grew, we needed to find out that we needed more equipment.
Yeah.
Because we had no sleds. We got our first sled from New England College. When they first had it, we'd go up there, we'd send maintenance up there, and they'd put it on a loader and bring it down.
On a flatbed and drive it down.
I mean,
so you're making do with what you have.
Yeah.
You're trying to build a program.
Right.
You're probably getting more and more guys coming out each year. Like people are getting excited about it.
Right.
Like this is part of Merrimack football.
Yep. And so they came and they worked at that. And like I said, when you try to explain that to some of these younger kids, they have no concept of what you're talking about. They just assumed everything was there. And I said, no, it wasn't there. It wasn't there. You had to work
much
your
harder
way.
to make it work. And you had a good stretch there, like you said, of 10 plus years of making the playoffs, and then the really good team, 1987.
Correct.
I mean, you had a few runner-ups, but you won the state championship, 1987.
Correct.
Great year. I played with Steve Krasinski, Crash, as we called him up at Plymouth State, and great guy.
Yep.
Real good defensive lineman. And so talk a little bit about that. It's a pretty magical year, I assume.
Yeah. It was a special year because you knew as a coach or an older person working that this doesn't happen every year.
Yeah.
That these kids are going to be going on, and you're hoping that the people who are coming in to replace them have taken some of the knowledge that they had and passed on to the younger kids.
Yep.
And so our program just started to grow, and we got more kids out. The numbers were great. We needed, again, since the program was successful, you needed money. So I said,
boosters
so we had to have a booster program.
Yeah.
And Don Surratt, who was at Concord High, talked about the quarterback club that they had up here at Concord High School.
Right.
And he came down and talked to a group of parents down there and help us get that started so we can raise funds for that.
Because a lot of people don't realize this. There's this whole behind the scenes group, usually boosters, the quarterback club, that do a lot of things, the little things that the head coach in the back in the day would have to worry about. And they try to take a lot of that off their plate. The fundraising, the just coordinating team meals, all these things that you need to have a good culture, right? And build relationships. So a lot of volunteer parents.
A lot of volunteer parents, and they all really realized what their job was.
Yeah.
Just as the coach was to coach, these parents knew that, we're going to provide what we possibly can for these kids.
Yeah.
And again, it's the same thing. When you have them, when their kids graduate, they graduate. Yeah. And so now
they don't hang around the next year.
So
you
gotta have
parents.
some,
So you're constant turnover in that.
And like you said, kids just don't understand that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to work for it that hard.
Right. So that 87 team.
87 team.
That was a good run. Sounds like, from what I saw in the papers talking about that, you guys beat Londonderry during the regular season.
We beat them.
Which was a big deal. Londonderry was the creme de la creme at that point, right?
Which they had not happened.
Yeah.
And we beat them. And then
you had to rematch with them.
We had a rematch with them. And of course somebody says, well, it's hard to beat the same team twice in the same year.
Right.
And we happened to that particular day. And like I said, and they had some great players.
Yeah.
And the thing was that the relationship between the two teams, even though it was such a rivalry on the field, they were great.
Yeah.
I mean, they would still hang around with each other off of the field.
Because it was, for people that don't know, Derry, Londonderry are like sister cities, towns, right? They're like so connected. All the kids know each other. They grew up together. They just go to different high schools at some point.
Exactly.
But they might live a quarter of a mile from each other or across the street, depending on where the town line is.
Exactly. And so when we got that, and a lot of the kids would, they would get together and off after the season was over, and as a group, and just hang out together. You know, like they always belong here.
Yeah,
and and they feel good about that.
Yeah,
and same thing with Pinkerton. You know, when we had
Pinkerton Academy.
You know, we were playing Pinkerton. I think it was 3 years later, and the quarterback for Pinkerton at that time, and we were down, and we came back and won the game in the tournament.
Yeah, the big upset.
We were seeded number 4. Pinkerton was seeded number 2 or 1, and we beat them. And then come and find out is that once we beat them, then we were going to play them again. And who's the quarterback of the team we're going to play? Ryan Day.
Ryan Day, head coach, Ohio State.
Right. He was the quarterback
at Central. At Central High School.
We knew going into that game. I mean, we were definitely the underdogs. As seeded number 4. But we felt positive about what we were doing. But it was
on a roll at the end of the year. And,
So it was some interesting people that we had an opportunity to play against. You know?
So that's interesting too, and that's come up in other videos where a lot of people don't realize some of the big, heavy-hitting head coaches at the college and pro level are right out of Manchester, New Hampshire, Concord, and New Hampshire in general.
Right.
You know,
Chip Kelly
was
the offensive person. Dan Mullen,
went to Trinity. You know, he's coaching in UNLV right now.
Right.
Also Mississippi State and Florida. But back to that 87 game, because you and I were chatting off camera here a little bit. It was freezing cold that day. It was minus something. I think it was like minus 17 with the wind chill.
Correct.
And this is New Hampshire, folks. You know, it was the ground was like cement and on the grass fields. And you guys played at Concord,
right?
Because my team in Concord High, we were in the state championship as well, and we had to play in Dover.
Right.
And but a great game, crazy cold. But what do you remember most about that game? Because it was such a huge deal for Merrimack to get their first state title.
Well, I think, we were playing a team that we had beaten during the year.
Yep.
And that was Londonderry. And again, the old rumor comes out, well, you can't beat them twice.
Right.
In the same year. And so we get out there, and as you said, it was freezing. I mean, as the AD, I get a call at Merrimack High School, don't bring the band because it's too cold and the kids can't play the instruments.
They can't put their mouth on the metal piece. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm saying, oh my God. And so we got there, and like you and I were talking, we were all excited because they had covering, or we thought was covering, and we get off the bus.
Field underneath the bleachers.
And we go in there, and I says, I think it's warmer outside than it is inside. And so we get in there, and of course, all the players had no sleeves, cut their sleeves off, or rolled them up. And so we get out there, and we kicked off, or they kicked off to us, and we got the ball, and we scored. Yeah. And
so first drive scored, set the tone for the day.
And from that point on, it was just a battle. Yeah. Some of the plays we had to eliminate from a repertoire of things we're going to do because the field was just conducive to running.
Run it.
Yeah, Yeah. And so at the end of the game, we get down there, and we had indicated to them, don't take any water and throw it on the coaches.
Yeah.
Because it'd probably freeze.
Yeah. I said, catch pneumonia.
And like you said, at halftime, we're going into the shack.
That's the shed.
And we look up, and we see all these people leaving. And so kids are saying, why are all these people leaving? Well, they weren't leaving. They were going to their cars to get warm up.
Yeah.
And people, it was like you were
We laugh about that now, but it was cold that day. It was bad cold. Like,
it was just so freezing.
Yeah.
And I think if the wind wasn't blowing, it might have been a little bit better. Yeah. But it was
it was cutting through people. Yeah. And the players, that once the game started, it was okay because you were on the field, you're running around doing something. Yeah. But everybody else is just standing there shivering.
Exactly. And we had jackets, or what they call
those pullovers.
Pullovers were not very.
No. So you won that in '87, right? first title, bring that back to Merrimack, and I'm sure there was a lot of buzz around the school and everything else. And you went on to have a few more runner-ups right after that.
Yeah,
we were big upsets of Pinkerton, and you upset. They had like a 4-year stretch where they won 4 straight titles, and you guys were the first guys to beat them and not get them to go back there.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, the following year, after we had beaten Londonderry, we met them again the following year in the championship game, and they beat us by a touchdown. So, I mean, that's how close we were to each other, you know.
And I assume there, too, by then, the culture was established. Sounds like you had a pretty stable coaching staff, maybe a little bit of turnover over the years, but was it mostly the same
Mostly the same people that we had hired way back when we first started. We had people. And at that time, the thing was that businesses would allow coaches to go and coach and take time off from work because it was a good PR for them. You know, he works at Sanders.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good because they're allowing him to go and do that.
Yeah, right.
Nowadays, it's not like
it's
that.
hard, you know. As you know, I help out at Pembroke Academy, and only our head coach is at the school.
Yeah.
Most head coaches have to be, just because they can be engaged with the kids.
Correct.
And be, you know, right after school they're there.
Yep.
You can have them come up to your classroom and watch film and do all this extra stuff. But it's hard from my personal perspective, trying to get out of work in time, taking time off.
Right.
And you know. So that seems like I think Lou D'Alessandro knew that was the path you were going to have to take by telling you, hey, you might want to think about teaching because he knows, you know, it's hard to do if you're not a teacher in the school system.
It certainly is. And it's, again, it's a thing that, you know, people have to understand that I have to be able to do this, and your commitment is so...
The dedication.
Dedication to that, and plus your family. You know, if you have a family and
the sacrifice,
right? And you know, I when I talk to people that want to be assistant coaches, I says, have you talked to your wife or your girlfriend about this? Because I think this is important. I think it's important that they know that going in beforehand, so that they know that your commitment's going to be there.
So I assume too during the week you would be breaking down film, scouting on the weekends. Yep. So you play Friday night. Oh, I'm going Saturday. I got to go watch so-and-so, right? So you're gone again for most of the day?
You know, you're playing Friday night, so you said Saturday. So you said 10 or 11, and I saying to myself, well, you want to have it as soon as you can so that you can go to Conway, you know, and scout up there. Yeah. And so I you know, that's my train of thought still is there. Right. That hasn't changed. But I used to enjoy that. I used to enjoy scouting. We had a group, Billy Ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the Seco Skip.
Yeah.
And Brian O'Reilly.
Yeah.
We would be there. That's
hang out in the end zone.
In the end zone. Yeah. We'd go to Laconia.
Yeah.
You know, and you'd have the people that had been drinking behind you, yelling and screaming at you, you know, and Joe, get out of the way, you know. But I mean, that's the thing that you did and you enjoyed doing.
A lot of camaraderie there, right? Between the coaches and you get to know them.
Yeah.
And,
see, now I'm wondering about that, how much there is, because there's such a
you have instant access to the film now.
Well, that's
like ours is already up from last night.
Yeah.
So it's just so there's almost no reason to go scouting. At least that's what they think.
Yeah.
But I was telling, you know, with Coach Cameron and stuff, because he said the same thing. He just loved going to the game the next day, especially if you won the night before. And you get to brag a little bit, but it was the relational stuff, but also what you could see in between plays when you're scouting. You could see players that were kind of head down, and you could pick up on the little things when you're seeing a defensive back, you know, and how he's covering in person. Right. You just don't catch that on film because it goes right from one clip to the next. It doesn't show you.
That's a good point, Peter, because you know, people say, well, you don't have to scout. I says, yeah, you do. Yeah. You have to scout. And for those reasons that you just stated is why you want to go and look, you know? And how much do the kids actually get out of that without a coach there? Yeah. You know, watching the huddle. Yeah. You know, you don't know
how they act in the huddle, how they the little things.
Yeah.
The guard's fingers aren't down much. He's pulling,
Yep.
right? Like the subtle stuff that you just can't see on a film so far away. Well, that's good. Yeah, so we were talking about the scouting and how that was such a big piece of when you were coaching, and how it's changed a little bit now with Huddle and kind of that sense that coaches might be missing out on something if they're not doing the in-person scouting and the players aren't doing that as much. There does seem to be some coaches still currently that enjoy doing that and do it week to week.
Yep.
But we're in a technology age now, right? And the kids have access to it almost immediately. The coaches do, so you can see the convenience factor of that.
Oh yeah.
But it does feel like they're missing out on the relational side of it and things that you used to love doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a time where you would get together and, you're going to say, okay, I'll see you next Friday night up at Laconia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Are we going to Burger King first or after,
Yeah.
Okay. But you're right. And now you don't have to worry about the exchange, like you and I used to say, we have to go down to the police station.
Yeah.
Well, we had the police station because that was the only place that was open 24 hours a day.
Oh, okay.
And we'd go down there and pick up the film and bring it back, and then,
Yeah.
But you don't do
and
that
then you hope it's the right film and it's quality.
Yeah, and it doesn't, it doesn't burn out on the machine going around. And,
Yep.
so there's a lot of disadvantages to that, in that you don't have that, like you said, that opportunity to meet with them and meet the coaches, so that the coaches.
Right.
Yeah. Some would come up and go, who's that guy? Well, he's the guy that gave us the film on so and so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or this school is now in their third coach in 5 years, and that type of thing. So let's get back to your time at Merrimack.
Okay.
So I believe you ended in 2000. Was that your last year there?
That was my last year.
So
I went to Manchester.
Yeah. So I'm always fascinated by, like, how did that transition happen? Did you feel like you were coming to the end of wanting to be a head coach, or was it just opportunity presented itself elsewhere?
Well, both. It was time for me to move on, I thought. And since I had been in Manchester for 4 years already, and it was it was a stressful period of time. It would be things that I didn't think were important, people thought were important. I mean, it's like you have the alderman or somebody would call you up and say, hey, the flag isn't
these
up.
little details.
Okay, but like you said, I just decided that was it for me. I had to move on. And the thing was, as I moved on, I still had a great relationship with all the coaches in the city. And they would tell me, hey, you going to come to practice today? We practice from so-and-so and so forth. Come on down anytime you want, anytime, So it was a good relationship that I established with them. And they were very helpful. And at that time, the AD at Merrimack left.
Yep. Okay.
So they said, you should reapply.
Yeah.
But I says, I don't want to coach. I just want to be the athletic director. See what that's like.
Yeah.
And so I went back for 2-3 years.
Okay.
I went back just as the athletic director.
Yep.
And again, trying to keep an eye on what was going on, primarily because I had been there when the program started, and I wanted to make sure things were still the same way, and things aren't changing just for the sense of changing.
Right. Yep.
And so I stayed there, and then I just said, well, it's time for me to get out. Because I already had opportunities from coaches that said, if you get out, you can come here and help coach. And help out, and do whatever you want. Right. You can coach whatever you need.
Yeah, linebackers, defensive line, whatever, right?
And they said, you can go and help out, and if you can't make it that day, don't worry about it. Yeah. Don't worry about it. And so
that must have been nice to feel like you were wanted in a lot of different places, because good experience is hard to come by these days in terms of football, high school football coaches, because it does seem like there's a quick turnover, not a lot of guys, but a lot of tenure, and guys wanting to get into it, not realizing how much it actually requires, so they get out 2 years later because it's too much, and that's okay, right? They just underestimated the cost of being a coach, because it's what I found, Coach, is it's a labor of love for sure.
Correct.
You have to love the game. You're not highly compensated, if at all.
That's true.
So, and there's a commitment from the family.
Yep.
There's a trade-off there in the balance that you have to try to do. And of course, the wives, are sacrificing and raising the kids in a lot of ways. Coach Gaddy, because he was the AD at Trinity and stuff too, he said he'd bring his kids to the hockey games and, when they're 5 years old or whatever, you make it work, but it is a sacrifice.
It is. It's a, and like you said, people don't understand that and realize the fact that you're going to be gone. At the same time, I was in the National Guard.
Oh, okay.
So I had a commitment.
The 1 weekend a month type stuff.
1 weekend a month.
Wow.
But I had people with me in the command that would allow me that I could miss that and make it up some other time. Yeah. So that worked out well. So you had to have a commitment by those people. But they're the ones that really instituted in me the necessity of having things written down on time. If you're scheduled to be here at this time, you're here at this time. Yeah.
Structure.
Yeah. If you're not there, don't. Some of these people bring their cell phones to the field.
Yeah.
And I don't have a cell phone, to tell you the truth. I just don't have one. They gave me.
I noticed that because I had to call you on the landline. I tried to text you. I was like, why isn't he not responding?
That's why, Pete. Not because I didn't like you.
That's probably a good thing, Coach. You're the one guy who's probably got it right.
Yeah, and so they said, when I was in Manchester, besides giving me the car, they gave me a cell phone.
What do I do with this thing?
Yeah. And I said, okay. So I took it and I put it in the glove compartment. I took it out of the glove compartment when I left.
Right. I had all these missed calls on it.
And I just didn't. I'm not going to. I said, the people that know me know that where I'm going to be. Yeah. And if they need to get a hold of me, they know how to do that. Yeah. But I mean, that was one of the big things. And so.
So you left. You stopped coaching in 2000, or that was your last year. Right. Now you also have a son that coaches or has coached.
Yep.
And did you coach him growing up, or where did he go to school?
He went to
Bill, right?
Yeah, he went to Brady.
Yep.
Okay, and so that was difficult for me because I was at Merrimack.
Down at Merrimack.
But I got to see some of his games because they played on Sundays. Sundays.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And because that's the only time they could get Memorial Field.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because Concord High was playing, and then whatever. And so I did that. I went to his basketball games because I was the AD, so I could move the schedule around so I could go those. My daughter was the same way. Yep. She ran cross country, and she played basketball. And so I said, okay, well, they're playing in Oyster River.
So every day it's a different location for you. You're going, you and your wife divide and conquer, right? Well,
so they said, how do you know where all these places are? I said, well, it's a matter of time before you do it. You know where they are,
Yeah.
But
back of your hand.
Yeah, that was about the thing that I had the most concern about, was that if I had an opportunity to see my kids play, I took advantage of it. Yeah. And so Bill went to Brady. He left there. He went to Florida for Catholic University down there.
Okay.
For a year of sports management, and then he left and he went to Springfield College.
Oh yeah.
And so he was down there, and then
great sports education, athletic.
Yeah. And then he went to Franklin.
Okay.
And when he got out, and he got a job at Franklin, and so he was the AD at Franklin.
Okay.
And also the football coach.
Right.
And then he left there, and then he went to John Stark.
Yeah.
And then he left there, and he went to Wyndham. Then he left there, and then he down to Malden Catholic.
Right.
He's the athletic.
So he had a long coaching career too. I might have to talk to him as well at some point, because that would be a fascinating one.
But he,
father, son, both coaches.
He and like he said, if you can come out anytime, come out. And I said, okay. And if he wanted me to coach with the defense, then I would find out when his defensive days were, So I'd make sure I clear my schedule for those days. If it was offensive, we'd do the other side.
Right.
So we had a pretty good time.
Good. So you're out of football for a good 15 years, and then this opportunity at Merrimack Valley, which is right here in Pennacook, serves Pennacook, Boscawen, right? So tell me a little bit about how that came to be and your experience getting back into it after being out for 15 plus years.
Well, they said, when it opened up, Kevin O'Brien, the athletic director, said,
great family friend of mine.
Would you be interested in coaching? I says, yeah. I says, I would apply. I'd rather not be the head coach. I'd be an assistant coach. Because I know head coaches you could get. Assistant coaches were hard to find.
Right.
And so they got rid of the staff that was currently at Merrimack Valley. And so I came in and they said, well, what do you want? I said, you tell me what you want me to do. And I said, that's one of the advantages I have is that I can coach whatever you want. You want me to coach special teams? I'll do that. I said, I'm not in this for any glory. I said, those days are gone. I don't need that. And so I had an opportunity to go on board with the staff there, and Kevin had hired a couple of more people. And so then after we got done that first year, now COVID starts to come in.
Oh, yeah, 2020.
And so that kind of screwed me up a little bit because, again, I'm not an individual who's accustomed to change. As you probably well know that, don't have
so you're in your 70s by then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so not a spring chicken anymore.
I'm not. And so I says, okay. So we couldn't go into school to use the locker room. So we had a shed out there. We used to store stuff in, uniforms, all that stuff. Like kind of like Concord High, but this had walls on it that didn't have any holes in it.
Right.
So that was really good. And so we would go out there, and I'd be the first one there because all the other coaches, with the exception of 2, I think, were working outside.
Outside the school system.
We had to adjust the schedule. And again, it's the same thing. Well, why aren't we practicing at 2:30? Well, we can't because we don't have any coaches.
Everybody's still working.
And so we got around that, and I would go out there and I'd take attendance, and then we'd go out there.
Get the warm-ups going.
Get all that
stuff like that.
I call it the minor things that had to get done, but they aren't really minor. But you had to get them done, and so that when the coaches could come and find out when can the coaches get here. I can get here by 3. I can get here by 3:15. Okay, we'll start at 3:30.
Right.
And go the 2 hours for that. Then again, the NHIA changed that routine that you could only practice so many hours per day.
Right.
Because some people were going against that rule.
We're overdoing it a little bit.
And so that's how we kind of worked around that. And so then I got to the point where I said, this is it for me. I said, I'm going to turn it over, because we had some good people who were the assistants who I thought could take over. And usually, like I said, when I'm talking to them, you get an idea. Okay, this person would be a good head coach.
They get it. They're going to dedicate their time and
And I had an individual who I wanted to bring on. He was my assistant girls basketball coach.
Okay.
But he could teach. I mean, and so I said, David, would you be interested in coming on board on the football staff? And he says, well, I don't know a lot about the game. I said, that's my job, to get that knowledge into you.
But teaching is a big part of it.
Right.
The skill of teaching and coaching.
Right. And so he was all excited about it, but he had 2 daughters that played basketball. And he just said, I can't do that.
I don't want to give up that.
Exactly. And I said, hey, I fully understand that. You know? So we went from that point on. And so then I told the new AD, because Kevin had just left, that this is it for me.
So you were there for 4 years, roughly? So in looking back, was that a good experience to dip your toe back in the water a little bit?
I don't think I ever left the water. By having the ability to work with school teams in another aspect.
So you were always around it.
I was always around it.
1968 or so.
I know.
But that's fascinating, Coach, because that's a lifetime. That's a lifetime of giving back. It's a lifetime of dedicating to a bigger cause. That sometimes, as you probably have many stories. It's sometimes you don't feel like a lot of gratitude is given to the coaches. You're judged by wins and losses, but
correct.
But as a coach, you look back more as what are we instilling in these young kids, right? How are they growing? Because we know we're building skill sets that will help them, right? Discipline, work ethic, like resilience, all those things, regardless of the record.
Correct.
You're trying to do that, and you kind of see that, but you have all these outside pressures because the boosters and quarterback clubs, they're volunteers. They like to help, but they also have agendas sometimes too, right? Or individuals in those groups.
In those groups have agendas. And that's the interesting part of it, And I was extremely fortunate
to have a good
booster club up here.
Yeah.
The woman who was in charge, I didn't have to worry. We would meet. Yeah. We would meet like at 7:00 in the morning.
Yep.
Down here at Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
McDonald's, and have a coffee. And just
talk about everything they were doing and coordinating.
It's just like going back with when I had the opportunity when I went at Brady. I had an opportunity to coach with Danny Nyan. And Danny just recently, as you well know, probably passed away.
Oh,
Chip's dad. And we would meet at 7:00 at Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin's, yeah.
On Main Street, down the South End.
South End.
Main, and we'd have coffee. And Danny worked for the insurance company at the time. Would have his little cards there. I must have 100 of them. And we would diagram what we're going to do. So, but little things like that, made it interesting.
So, you have a connection at some point with Chip Nyan, the Nyans, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Chip played at Brady.
Right.
He's coached as well after, and he's not coaching anymore. But so you coached with his dad, or such a small world, Coach. Like everybody knows everybody.
Everybody. And I think it was because we went around and we didn't show up for the film.
Yeah.
Or the huddle or whatever you want to call it nowadays. You had to go and you had to talk to them.
Or you're meeting at Dunkin's and you're talking about things. And
you make adjustments to what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's
fascinating.
And, Jack Gaddy knew where I lived, and he would give the film to one of the teachers at Concord High School, who would drop off the film here in my mailbox. So I could do that.
Right, a VHS tape then. Yeah.
So you had to,
So everybody's helping each other out.
Yep.
Everybody knows it's football, you're loving the game. It's part of the deal of just, hey, let's set each other up for success, give us the best chance. So we have a good football game.
Yep.
You gotta be able to scout and see offenses and defenses, and so a pretty tight-knit group for the most part.
It used to be. I don't know what it is now, though. But we were very successful with working with each other and not being afraid to give up.
Yeah.
It still comes down to what 11 are you going to put out? What 11 am I going to put out?
At the end of the day, right? Who's still got to play the game, and
who's got the better athlete?
And some years you win, some years you lose. But you keep going out there year after year. So in thinking back, looking back at your career and stuff, and I always try to end the videos with a couple of questions, of what would you tell a young person wanting to get into coaching football, and like what sort of things you would say to them, advice, what would you say to a freshman boy coming out for football, like things that he should be thinking about, or girls for that matter, because you had female player for you too, the kickers. And then any thoughts on your legacy, which is kind of hard. I don't want you, nobody wants to brag and stuff, but Coach, you've been around for quite a while, and at least from just conversations I've had, there's a lot of people that have a lot of respect for you and what you were able to accomplish. So those three questions. So what would you say to a younger coach trying to break in, things to think about?
Well, I think your first consideration would be the family. What's going to happen with the family. They have to all understand it, and they have to buy into the program or what you want to do and what you're trying to accomplish. That you're going to be away some nights you're going to miss some important dates.
A lot of weekends.
Yeah, in the weekends. And again, I think the head coach can solidify that a little bit by scheduling things where it's going to be accessible to everybody around, you know. Then I think you also have to understand that you've got to be able to talk to the kids and let them know that, you know, what happened in middle school or Pop Warner isn't the same. You know, now it's not the same. You're going to see kids that are bigger and smaller than you, and you got to make that adjustment on how you do things with them. That they can't do the same things as the older kids. Get them involved in the weightlifting program.
Right.
If you're not going to play another sport, then do something.
Right.
You know, I mean, if worst comes to worst, lift on your own. But you gotta do some lifting. It's not gonna help you progress if you do no lifting.
Right.
The days of, Coach, here I am.
Just show up.
August 15th.
Yeah.
Let's start. No. That's gone by the board. You know, that's a thing of the past. So.
Okay. So then, what would you say to incoming freshmen about, you know, getting ready for high school football? You mentioned a little bit, you know, there's such a growth in that age bracket too, right? 15 to sometimes 18-year-olds. And, you know, a 15-year-old looks skinny and scrawny, but then by 16, 17, he's suddenly this young man. So there's a lot of change, and a lot of kids kind of think, well, I'm too small to play. Well, you got some growth to happen.
Right. And so, I think if you become involved, get involved with somebody that's doing the same thing that you're trying to do. Yeah. You know, go out and get somebody. It's better if you work with somebody than work by yourself, you know.
That accountability that comes.
Well, and the other thing too is that when I was down at Merrimack, and we could sit here and laugh about this all day, I said to this kid, well, how are you going to get your kids to practice? I'm going to drive them. I said, well, you got to be 16 to drive. Yeah, I know. I got my license. He's a freshman. Yeah. And I says, oh, okay. You know, I didn't know how to take it at the time. Yeah. I said, oh, okay. And I said, you know how to receive a football? And I says, yeah. He says, you put your hands like this. I says, well, what do you think's wrong with that picture? I says, do you think maybe the guy on defense sees you like this, might know that you're going to get the ball? Right. Well, yeah. I said, well, that's not a good thing. I said, you got to somehow conceal that as much as possible. Right. So you have an opportunity, even though you're only 120 pounds. Right. You know? Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's those little things, right? Yeah. Those little tweaks that people don't realize in football, especially like the technique, like how intricate it can be. Oh, yeah. Right. Like the pulling guard and the you know, your alignment, where your foot is next to the center's foot. Is it a tight split? Is it a spread split? And why? You know? Well, it's all about the angles. You got to be able to double team down. You got to spread out a little bit so you can get a good angle. The average fan, I don't think, realizes the amount of intricate coaching that goes on with players. I mean, and we spent a lot of times, and I'm sure you did when you were in high school and when you went to the next level, that you spent time saying, why are we doing this? And then all of a sudden, hey, that's why I do that. Oh, okay. Yeah. You know? Why are we spending so much time on these read steps? Yeah. Because the game we used to critical. Do that when I was at Merrimack Valley. Our first 10 minutes to 15 minutes would be on techniques. Just techniques. Just how technique. Do you do it? Over and over and over. No, that's not right. Why are you standing up? Yeah. Yeah. You know? So little things like that so that you don't give away any more secrets than you have to give away. Right, right. So the last question, legacy or in hindsight, the things that you're proud of, or, you know, what you hope people would say about you and your name comes up. I think they, you know, hopefully they'll say that I was fair. I was honest with them. I gave them as much time as I gave the star of the team. Yeah. That, you know, you're as important as anybody else out here. And without you, we couldn't do some of these things. And again, continue to work hard and good things will come from it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, right? Because it's come out in a lot of these videos that football is unique and that there's a good amount of team players that don't see the field that much.
Right.
It's one of the few sports where a lot of guys won't see the field,
right.
but they practice their tail off. Baseball, you're going to get in. Basketball, you're going to get in at some point. Football's, you might get on a special team,
right.
be able to show your worth, but there's a lot of guys that they're during the week is their game day, right? Prepping, being on the scout team and things. And it's a hard sport. It's physical and it's mental. It's and that's what I like about it, I think, is that overall challenge to the individual about the physical and mental side of it that I think sometimes goes underappreciated. But as a coach, you're trying to herd all those cats to go in the same direction,
that's right?
And
that's
a
going
that's
the
a
right
whole
way.
skill set in its own.
That's you gotta be able to do that so that in order for you to be successful. And if you're not successful, then they're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
And again, that falls back on you,
right?
Because you're the teacher.
Yeah.
And that's why I said when you're looking for a coach, I always look for somebody that can teach, not how much knowledge they have, but what they can teach.
Yeah.
And if I can find that individual that is a good teacher, maybe not have a lot of knowledge in football, then that's my job to get him that knowledge.
Right. And that's another interesting thing, because you get kids from all spectrums, right? Different life, different home lives, different skill sets. You get the kid who's coming out his junior year because he just wants to be part of something, but he doesn't even know how to a proper stance. And you're going back, and then you have the kid who's played since he was 9 years old. And he thinks he should be starting as a freshman. And maybe he can. But they're rare.
They're very rare.
But then if he has all these expectations that are very different than that other kid, it's just like, hey, I just want to be part of this, and I think it's cool. And
well, how about the kid that comes out and can't put on the equipment?
Yeah.
Now you automatically know something's wrong here. If I don't have.
He's like, how do I put these on?
My side pads on in. They're in the wrong pockets. They're not down here on your knees.
And then you got the next kid with all the swag, right? He's and you're like, okay, tone it down a little bit. I was telling some of our players, you got to have the juice before you can wear the swag. So don't be wearing all the swag if you're not that good of a player, But we have fun with that. That's just the sign of the times, right? They see it all on TV and social media and everything, and we're always trying to keep them grounded. And you know what? It all starts with assignment, alignment, and technique. Every single play.
Exactly.
Because if you don't have that,
you're not going to.
Whatever you're wearing doesn't matter.
No,
at the end of the day, if you can't make the tackle. So that's fun. That's good stuff. Well, I think as usual, Coach, it's been a great time talking with you. We just met each other this morning. We went back and forth in email. We didn't text.
No.
I had to call you on your landline, and that's a great thing too. But I really appreciate your time. This has been consistent with my other conversations with coaches, where it's just like an immediate connection. Feels like we've known each other for quite a while already, and I hope we do keep in touch. But for everybody out there, I do appreciate you watching this video. If you liked it, of course, hit like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do that. Share it with your friends. Feel free to comment as well. If you played against Coach Raycraft here, or coached with him, or coached against him for that matter, because the network is pretty strong, feel free to drop a comment. I really appreciate your time, and take care, everybody. Thanks.
Great job, Peter.